YouTube. I actually am posting this video as a response to a video that was done by LDS Prepper. He's a guy that I can't tell what state he's from, but he's run this new video series that actually kind of intrigued me to go ahead and do my own. Where basically he takes and walks outside and just switches his power off to his house, runs his electricity through mainly his battery bank. He uses a generator in some instances, turns his gas off, turns his water off, and says, "Hey, let's see what's gonna happen." And this actually inspired me a little bit because in one phase, this has been a backup plan, but at the same time, it kind of inspired me to see how this would actually work out for me. This video series is gonna go just like his over 8 days, and we're gonna, the one difference is basically their electricity here was never on. This has always been a secondary power plant. It doesn't really replace electrical, but immediately when I started my project, I had to limit my power usage, and obviously, sweet upgrades like a TV and PlayStation, Xbox, surround sound, all those things came to me a little bit later on, and I love the fact that I have those upgrades, but not everyone has that luxury. So I'm posting this video kind of as a response to what he did, but at the same time kind of give it more so of a practical application of what could most likely happen. Not too long ago, most of us remember where we had a big collapse, and some families are still going through it where they've lost their $175,000 or $280,000 homes, and they've had to move back in, or they've had to sell some property and go back into their older original home, or even more so, they went back and decided to move in with family. Not necessarily bad things, but for the ones that don't even have that as options, I've made this somewhat of a backup plan. This home was given to me, inherited to me when my dad passed away. Everything that I've had that's been sent here, I've just been kind of experimenting with, and I haven't truthfully been here every day of the week. I come here on the weekends, and at the most, I used to have a recliner that I would sit in and basically take naps, play games, do movies. I had a little futon in this corner, but since then we've moved to an apartment, and I'm here every weekend, but not here that often to say that I'm 100% off the grid and living that way. And that's where I want to set up this experiment and actually kind of give my personal perspective on how that would work. This home is not a very big home. This is the living area. As I said before, we were remodeling this house. It's a little messy because 3 guys come out here every weekend and play games. But it's been used mainly as storage. I mean, you have tires here for my car. You have food, just some food. It's not a lot. It's just the storage. It's like I said, this was a backup plan just in case anything were to happen. For instance, you lose your job, you lose your title. I don't know, maybe you're on the run for some reason. Anything were to happen, you have a backup plan. My calendar hasn't been filled out in a while, but anyway, the gist of the experiment is basically to let someone see if they're ready, if they're prepared to live without the luxuries that you normally would have while being able to work. And I'm taking this week as a vacation to actually do this for you guys. My video is gonna be probably very interesting, so hopefully you guys subscribe. It's just coming in. This is something that I normally do. I usually turn the AC or the fans on, the Xbox. But minute I'm gonna be here for a week, I'm gonna test this system. Over the week, I haven't had much power running from this thing. Let's look at where we are. We're 12.9 volts here. Pretty full. Pretty full on both battery banks. We have a small one that I built and a large one. The small one was the original battery bank until I realized I wasn't using batteries that were recommended for off-grid use. I was using Marine Deep Cycle, but they're commercially classified as so, and basically they sold more batteries by saying the plates are thicker than batteries from a car, but they're not truly deep cycle compared to the golf cart type or GC2 or GC8, GC12, if you guys are familiar. But anyway, Most of my knowledge comes from this project that I've been running. A lot has come from YouTube. It's not much that I can't. Hello YouTube again. This is it's pretty funny. While I was recording the first part of this video where I'm starting a video series, my phone has died. I actually had to find an extension cord and run it all the way over here to this phone to charge my phone. I can already tell I have things ran through my outlets, but this is how I have it ran since I've moved it in here. It was kind of a hasty move, but based off of this experiment, I would assume that most people would want to make it seem like it's something that you do over the course of a day and to get everything done. Assuming that all of a sudden there was a crisis or there was all of a sudden move, you could have a shed or maybe even a mobile unit that stores product. I don't know what I guess a trailer, somewhere hidden, filled with solar panels, batteries, water, things like that. So that basically overnight you could move and set these things up. And that's pretty much how I got things running right now. So this is day one of that experiment, and so far, like I said, my batteries on the phone has already died.
We're sorry, but we can't access the network right now.
I don't have a clue why my other phone is doing that. Let me change that. Okay. Anyway, this, like I said, was a playhouse. Basically, we came in, we painted, we did a lot of things out here, but it's long ways from being completed. So, in this experiment, please do not comment on the messiness or the non-cleanliness or whatever you see, because it's, like I said, it's a bachelor pad, and for the most part, I just want us to notice what it takes to live off the grid. If you don't mind, please help me be positive when it comes down to me putting these videos up, because I am going out of my way, taking a vacation and doing things that I wouldn't normally do, just to kind of help you guys out and help myself, really. So anyway, to start the video, I want you guys to note that basically I'm only going to have $100 of spending cash, which is not a lot of money. Preparing for this, I have not saved up very much, but assuming that I lost my job, for instance, $100 is all I have. That's not much for gas to run a generator, which I have. It's not much money for food to run, if my freezer wasn't full, which I'm lucky enough to already have had some canned food and supplies. Let's just say I emptied my pantry and got enough to kind of carry me over. Stuff that I don't normally eat, but I will eat, Anyway, very curious to see how this goes. So every time something new happens, I'll be posting more on the video. Right now, I'm going to do what I normally do, which is gaming time. Okay? Did not mean to do that. I dropped my phone because it's tethered to this long 25-foot extension cord, which all of a sudden became very short. Anyway. Power's being turned on. One cool thing about living off the grid when you do, or whenever you're working on an issue like that, you need to have surge protectors. These little quick $5, $10 things right here have switches that basically keep power from running through your devices while you're not using them. As you can hear a light hum that's coming from my pure sine wave inverter. It's actually from my inverter that has a modified sine wave, and you can hear the hum of the electricity going through it. It's basically the TV has a filter for the pure sine wave, and it doesn't work very well because of the connection of the quality of the electricity that's going through it. Anyway, running my PlayStation. Like I said, it's gaming time. I'm about to turn my fan on. We've seen plenty of videos of how much energy I can use. One thing that's going to help me or serve me a little bit better than some others is that my power consumption is nowhere near as high as a lot of these guys that are doing these videos, hooking it up to houses that are, I don't know, 150,000 square feet. I don't freaking know square feet. But anyway, 2 stories, and, their bedroom is the size of this house. And I have a nice size apartment, but, for the average person that has one of these, you know, $20,000-$30,000 houses, it's not going to be very much bigger than this or as big as this. So, with that being said, I'm running a fan, my TV, and Xbox. I'm not sure if I'm going to run Xbox or PlayStation. I usually have them hooked up one at a time, so that's how I'm going to run it today. One thing that I started to mention was the fact that I have surge protectors everywhere. These are not to protect my TVs as so much as it is a better use of conserving power. If you guys watched the movie with Jackie Chan, where they were talking about, you know, basically having a water heater that comes on instantly, you turn it on, and then 30 minutes later take a bath or a shower. This is that. Power coming from, or that goes to a TV, can it be no more than 30 watts, 60 watts, but it's always going to it whether or not the TV's on. It's basically preparing it to more so respond to the remote coming on. But if you have it wired like I do, basically you just hit your switch whenever you want to watch TV. And I have my antenna wired in there, and luckily it has a LED that I put in that would tell me whether or not this circuit is on. So basically my antenna light turns on and lets me know that this circuit is live even if my TV is off and I don't have a picture, which tells me that I'm wasting energy. So, you know, that's something cool that I've done, and I recommend it. This fan is actually cooling this area off pretty quickly. I might end up having to turn it down or putting it on a timer. Some awards and things up there. Anyway, let me find out why I'm not on the right channel. PlayStation. And of course, I forgot to bring my controllers that I was charging at the apartment. So, PlayStation it won't be. It will be, let's go with regular TV. Just kind of see how the weather's looking today. By the way, conditions and time. Right now it's about 10 p.m. It's raining outside. It has been raining all day. Not very sunny where I was at when I was in town. So, on a regular day, this would not be a lot of power for me. But being that this battery bank has been fully charged for a while, I can show that to you, by the way. Being that the battery bank's been fully charged for a while, it didn't hurt it too much, and I only keep like 2 or 3 lights on in the house at all times. I run my freezer when I have food out here, but for this experiment, I'll be running it at all times, kind of like the LDS Prepper guy did. As you can see, my charge controller tells you that we're sleeping. We're getting about 1 volt on the line. We've had 130 amp hours come in through today. I'm at about 12.4 volts, and that's mainly because I'm running a load. Not sure I don't know why this thing doesn't turn the light on. But anyway, here's my little storage room. I wired my 24 volt line across here. Like I said, this is mainly an experiment to see if one person were to set this up in a day, how successful would they be at maintaining their lifestyle. And I have a 24 volt line that runs in from here to here. I have a 12 volt line that also comes in. I just haven't wired it up as if I ran out of daylight. So I'm going to work on that tomorrow. You'll get to see a little bit of that. But anyway, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 deep cycle 215 amp batteries wired up in series and parallel to produce a 12 volt battery bank that's all wired with 0 gauge wire. All of them are in parallel circuits, so that basically, you know, the battery's power will only travel so far without having to have so much resistance in between the line. I also have a supercapacitor wired over here that basically is charged by the batteries, but through a circuit, so that it's connected directly to the inverters. The reason I have that done is so that if my freezer comes on and my compressor is running while my TV's on, it won't trip the inverter, and it won't cause me to end up being in the dark for a few minutes. I know it's a little messy. We're going to clean this up over this week. Down here I have 2 rows of 5 marine deep cycle batteries that came from Autocraft. They're about $80 a piece. The batteries, the GT2 type, were about $130 a piece. But either way, they're wired up in parallel only, as they are 12 volt batteries already. We wired them all up, 10 of them in all, wired up in parallel, and they run through a circuit through this wire up to this bus bar. That's the negative. Here's the positive. They both run up and through that bus bar through a 300 amp fuse over to the. This is the circuit that it follows. But anyway, basically these are through independent circuits that are controlled via here. Basically to the right, that I know it says my auxiliary. That was my secondary bank, which is now my primary, and then this one to the left, which is in the off position, is my my battery bank to the bottom, basically, that so that I can choose whether or not I need power from one or the other. The one reason that I wired them separate is because, as you know, as you drain power from one battery, they tend to try to charge each other, and they consider it a load. When you have a small capacity battery, the chemistries are a little bit different on the batteries, for one, and then also the fact that they're all trying to charge that one battery constantly. They're wasting more energy in the conversion of charging than it needs to, and it basically will cause your batteries to prematurely lose a lot more of their storage power. So, I wired them up into two separate banks for that reason. My battery meter, all these things have been purchased over time, and even this was my first original. Actually, I'm sorry, this was my third inverter that I went with. I had a 400 watt, and then I went to a 750 watt, and now I'm at a 1200 watt. Now also have an additional 6,000 watt to basically run my electrical tools without having to crank generator up. Anyway, to keep this short, basically, I will say this. I have experimented with this one time before where I decided to stay over a weekend and to keep from having to drive back and forth. Me and my wife were having a little issue, which I love my wife. She's great. But we had a little issue with me driving back and forth and coming home super late. So ultimately, I made the decision that it was not smart to go home one night at 1 o'clock after experimenting out here. So I called her up and told her I'd stay over. And that was a lesson that I learned was horrible, because basically I had 2 fluorescent lamps and a laptop, and I managed to kill my batteries, which was only 2 at the time. I killed those batteries within like 8 hours of sleeping. I woke up to the shrill sound of my inverter beeping and telling me you are retarded and to stop using as much electricity as I was. So that was my first lesson. I also developed a chart for myself. Basically, before I had this battery meter, I had to guess where my battery was, and to do that, I basically came up with that's not necessarily scientific, but I did come up with a gauge of what to do. As you can see, basically off to the left of the 50% range, it tells me to power off my bank inverter and plug in my generator immediately. I did that quite often. Off to the right, you basically have the good range, keep it above 50%. Most of this was working for me as long as you don't have a load on your batteries. This will work because it tells you where your battery is, but for the most part, if you have a load on your battery, it doesn't matter what the size of the load is, it's going to cause these numbers to change and go back and forth. As you can see, with a small load of fan and a TV, I'm only pulling 26.6 amps. I'm not sure if you can read this, but I'm getting 12.5 volts here. Over there, on that, I'm getting 12.4 volts, which is because of the distance it's traveling to read the voltage. It's called a voltage loss, or power loss. But anyway, over here on my battery meter, I'm probably pulling somewhere around 12.6, maybe 12.7. No, 12.4. Because of the fact that, basically the meter is reading so far away from the battery bank. And also because of the load where it's drawing from and things like that. There's a lot of numbers and analytics that you have to put into your battery bank to know whether or not you're in a safe zone or not. So currently, if I were to read it against my old meter, 12.4 puts me somewhere between 75% and 85% of my battery, which, if I look at my battery meter, which is trimetric, it's got all of my readings and everything programmed into it, I'd be wrong. I'm actually at 98% of my battery because of the fact that this keeps track of all the amps going in and out of my battery bank, and it also accounts for any charging efficiency issues. It accounts for it all. So basically, this is reading at 50% of my total capacity. So for now, this basically will tell me how much power I have realistically. it's not going to go down to 50% and I know that my batteries are dead. You know, it's going to go all the way down to 0 to tell me that I'm at 0% of my usable power to be at safely 50% of my battery bank. And that's only programmed for my top. So that's pretty neat. You know, when I use my secondary bank, I don't use a meter on that. In fact, I just use a voltage readout here, which is not plugged in because my 9 volts dead. But I use the voltage readout just to tell me. Change this battery. I have a battery charger for my 9 volts over there. If you failed to see me do that. But anyway, it's hooked up through these little clips. Anyway, it tells me that my small battery bank is at 12.9 volts, which is extremely accurate because I'm not draining any power from it. None whatsoever. Now, the cool thing about... I need to wire these things or put these things in a place where I wouldn't be knocking it over while recording. But anyway, the cool thing about what I have is during the power or the charging of my battery bank, basically the charge controller connects to the bus bar, which connects to both batteries. This is basically only going to allow the load or the inverter to get power. So basically both battery banks will fill up while the sun's out. Both will fill up. Only the ones that are being used will draw power from it. So, you know, if I already have one that's completely full and the other one's not, it will, you know, slowly charge the full one and completely charge or bulk charge the other one instead of bulk charging, which is one cool feature of an MPPT type charge controller. It's pretty neat. But anyway, as you can see, one's at 12.9, the other one's at 98% at 12.4. Pick this up, and just so you guys can see, I am off grid. I'm going to show you an experiment. I'm going to take and turn this power off and turn this one on. But to do that, I'm going to turn this one on first. You're going to see the voltage start to lose a little bit automatically. And then I'm going to turn this one off. Basically, now I'm pulling from the smaller battery bank. And everything's still on. Next part of this experiment is now to turn off both. I forgot to tell you guys again, my battery on my phone was extremely low, so as soon as I turned the power off, my recording stopped. Oh god. Anyway, it got pretty dark for a second. Things were beeping at me. It's crazy. It's nighttime. It's time for me to do something else. Oh, I'm running a concurrent experiment that you guys can kind of witness. This is hooked up to a wind turbine controller that I have hooked up to this PWM solar charge controller to see if basically I can get the voltage of this line above 15 volts, if this will confuse the PWM controller into thinking it's a solar charge controller. So far the wind has only spun it up to about 10.4 volts throughout the day. Being that it's raining and a windstorm out there, maybe we'll see that spike up, but I'm gonna turn this off for now and we'll check this a little bit later after the winds have picked up and see if we get any more electricity, and if it can turn this charge controller on to help with charging my battery bank. I doubt it'll be much energy because it's just a little old DC 12 volt motor, but we're going to experiment with it and from there carry it on to see if we can get a treadmill motor to do the same thing. A couple of other things I got in here. I was tried doing what I saw one of these guys doing, the hydroponic system. I'm not sure if it's hydroponic or aquaponics. Anyway, it's a failure because I suck. I cut styrofoam into these things. I try to keep the algae from growing by using white, painted it and everything, ran my wires, bought these little rubberized insulated sockets and ran LED grow bulbs in there, 3 in a series, or 3 in parallel actually, and basically grew them inside of there. I put it on a timer. When it's on, this is what it looks like. That's the grow lights being on. I'm afraid to lift the lid because I think I have insects growing in there that scare me right now. So I have a little DC water pump inside of there. The 12 volt pump would hook up to the 12 volt bank directly and basically power what would be a recirculating pump to keep the water from becoming moldy, or I don't know, settling or not oxygenating. I figured this is something that's important for the growth of the health or growth of the plant. So anyway, it failed horribly because I got them to bud and they started to grow and then they died. Still haven't taken the plants out, and I'm not going to tonight. I will be covered in bugs, I'm thinking. But anyway, again, don't laugh. It's just the storage house for now. They got toys in here for my 2 kids. They're not going to be with me this week. Unfortunately, I know everybody's going to give me the sad face, but they're not going to be with me because I'm running this experiment. I don't want them running around electrical wires hanging everywhere and water pumps and things like that. So anyway, to continue this tour, this is the room that I had my washer in. I took it to the other house. My wife was telling me I needed to. That's my distilled water for my batteries. This is my freezer. Since the last time I was here, I actually took the ice out. But one cool thing that I found out about these type of chest freezers is basically they keep the cool air inside of there, even though they're not on, for up to 8 hours. So basically, I put a heavy-duty timer on there, and I would put mine with the ice in the bottom, maybe 4 inches of ice, 40 pounds, something that costs $2.50. Cover it with ice, put all my sandwich meat, put all of the things that I want in there, and basically have the timer come on 8 times a day, and it froze everything. So, you know, with it coming on 8 times a day for half an hour, it froze everything. I'm thinking I'm going to run it 4 times a day and kind of monitor the temperature via my wireless reader. As you can see, the freezer has been off, so right now it's 78 degrees on the inside of that and 81 on the outside. Again, we want to run this experiment as if we just ran into this place and we're setting everything up. I modified my my hot water from here. It's no longer hot water, but because it was filtered water, I wanted to run that straight into my washer, which is what I was doing. I know a lot of this stuff isn't the code. This house has been abandoned for some time. I'm not a contractor or anything. I just was trying to make things work, and I'm gonna do the same here. Anyway, going back in here, nothing very interesting other than the bedroom. This is where I will attempt to sleep. I will have to, of course, take and unwrap all of these dressers and storage things that I've put in here over time. Got my AC over here ready to cool this room off. Got my chair here for me to sit and sleep in. Got a solar panel that I'm going to put back out. It's not very big in here. As you can see, it's already been painted. I'm liking that. That's about the only thing that I've done to it other than put stuff into it. So once I get all this done tomorrow, I'll show another quick tour of the house. But anyway, for tonight, I've already brought in my little pump that I was able to get already pre-assembled from China for $15 on eBay. I recommend getting it. If you guys do not do this, you will be worried about water, and this is one thing that you need to have. You need to have some way of drinking. You need to have some way of cooking. You need to have some way of, basically having clean water that's guaranteed. Now, I've seen where people have filters, which are great, but you have to have some way of storing that water. And this is my storage 5-gallon thing. These things cost maybe $5 full of water. I have 5 or 6 of them. And this is just to hold mainly drinking water. It has a little power switch on here, on and off. I could turn it on and off right now, but I'd pour water everywhere. But basically, this is what I'll use to keep my drinking water for the next week. Like I said, I have 2 more of these containers. A few more of these containers. This part of the house will be redone. I'm going to have to move some things out. I also have gray water storage here, which is basically 1, 2, 3. I'm missing 1. Oh, there's 1. And I got 2 more in the back. 4 more in the bathroom. Just storage containers for water. For flushing and for washing dishes, things like that. And again, the house is a mess because it wasn't prepared for this. And again, this scenario isn't the perfect one where you just walk in and you're completely ready. This experiment is to see if the average person were to be semi-prepared and they had a place to go and they unloaded their trailer. what would day 1 through 7 look like in setting themselves up? What could they use? What would they have to go without? What things would come up that they need to be prepared for? And that's where I am. One thing before I go to bed tonight, I've been wanting to do this. I was always able to plug in an iron. I was always able to plug in a microwave. I have always been able to plug in like a little small George Foreman. But I'm kind of curious how this inverter would work with everything running. So in the morning when the sun is out, because I'm about to kill this thing tonight, in the morning when the sun's out, I'm going to test and see how this experiment works. And I'll videotape everything. Breakfast, I got to figure that out too, because I don't have anything in the freezer, and I have corn and green beans. Probably going to end up turning on the gas grill outside and cooking myself with the pot over there, cooking myself some green beans, corn, maybe a thing of noodles, spam, all those things, the good stuff, and yum. Anyway, good night. I'm watching TV. Hello YouTube, this is still night 1, day 1 of this project that I have of living off grid and in an emergency situation. Having only enough time to set up panels and get your battery bank going. So far, it's not so well because I'm used to taking a shower or a bath every single night. One bad thing is I'm able to turn on, because I'm in the country, I'm able to get the advantage of having a well pump, but because of the fact that I don't want to drain my battery bank too low to charge, to power the water pump, I'm not going to run that tonight. And then on top of that, the fact is I won't have hot water, I'll have cold water, which is something I'm not going to be used to wash up. So I'm doing what is known as a sponge bath, or just wiping my face, my chest, getting the sweaty parts, wiped, so that I'm not ending up, being ultraly grotesque. Tomorrow I'll end up addressing that issue. I've seen many videos about how to do that, but anyway, just wanted to let you know that on night 1, day 1, the one issue that I found before I went to sleep was the fact that to wash up and take a bath, you need to have at least 30 gallons of hot water for me, as long as I shower. And to carry around 30 gallons of water, that's a lot of weight. To carry around that, it's not practical. So one thing that I was not not prepared for, was the fact that I would use all of my storage of water just to take one bath. And oh man, that would suck. So anyway, quick update where we are on the battery. It's been about 3-4 hours. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. A little tired myself, but I've been running the TV. Oh man, excuse me. I've been running the TV. Wow, not really draining much power at all. I'm assuming because of the fact that I have an LED TV that's draining about 120 watts at most. I'm saving a lot of energy because I'm only at 95%. I'm at about 12.8, 12.9. It's fluctuating back and forth. My desulfator isn't turning on at all, which means that my bank is below 12.8 volts on my large side. So, it's questionable how much power is actually coming out. And I see now that because I have 2 of the banks wired in parallel to each other, I'm only draining 14.7 amps out of the big bank, which means I'm probably sharing an equal load on the small bank. And we can see if that's evident by the fact that I'm turning off the small battery bank and just running it completely off of the big one. You can start to see the voltage go up. The voltage went up here, but the amperage starting to creep back up as it is using more and more energy from the one bank to to accommodate for the power that's coming out. Keep in mind also that the ultracapacitors have been fully charged by both batteries. So basically, the ultracapacitors are acting as a battery while the batteries are compensating for the lack of energy. So it's going to slowly creep up, and it's, like I said, probably going to be somewhere around 20 amps by the end of it. If it's not, I wouldn't know why only part of the load would go from the small bank to the other one, unless it has something to do with the distance that the electricity has to travel. But anyway, a lot of questions, a lot of things, a lot of signs to look into. But just wanted to post that update before I had went to bed officially. Another thing is, when you do end up going to bed in a situation like this, just be prepared that you're going to hear a lot of silence with everything is off, and that's going to creep you out. So to avoid that silence, entertain yourself with a radio. I have the ability to run a TV and fan and all those things, but try to entertain yourself at least with Pandora Internet Radio if you have that. Because if you sit in a new location that you haven't been in, or in a location that you haven't seen in a while, you'll be creeped out by every cricket that's in the woods, and you don't want to have that high level of discomfort. Another thing that I have out here is a gun to defend myself if for some reason there's a raccoon or a random person that tries to rob me, being that they've never seen anyone in this location for as long. But anyway, I'm ready to defend myself. Just be prepared just the same, okay? Good night. Good morning, YouTube. This is day 2 of my off-grid experience. Just woke up not too long ago. It's about 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the a.m. Sun's up, birds chirping, things are happening. TV's still on. About to see the current state of affairs. I finally turned that fan off. It got way too cold. Not sure how everybody else feels, but when the temperature is somewhere around 85 degrees and it's circulating there, it tends to cool the room off pretty quickly. And basically, me wearing a shirt, I was sneezing last night. It was pretty cool, so I turned the fan off, but I left the TV on. Anyway, I'm gonna turn the lights on, let you see pretty much how everything is. I left my outdoor light on last night, also just so that I could see outside if someone knocked on the door or something. This bedroom light was left on. I usually leave it on as one of the ones. I ended up sleeping in the chair out here with the TV. So it's a little dark. It's because there's not a lot of sunlight coming in. I mean, we got 2 windows, but the sunlight basically just illuminates the floor. Let's see. It looks like I got it down to 79% with the TV running all throughout the night. Let's see. Right now, because the sun's recharging, we're at 13 volts, pulling about 2 amps. So basically, the sun's not fully up, and we're only losing about. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We're charging. It's way too early for me. We're charging. We're at 2.7 amps charging with the load. So pretty much once I turn everything off, let's see where we're at on the current amp hour. I burned up 100 amp hours last night. Wow, one night, 100 amp hours. That's a lot of energy. Good thing I have something like this to read my battery bank and tell me where I'm at. Now, the cool thing is my MPPT type charge controller actually does tell me how many amp hours I've brought in so far. I brought in 48 amp hours. If you remember, yesterday we were reading only at 100. The only reason that my amp hours were so low, if you guys are concerned, is because as you have a charge controller that refills batteries, it tapers off as the batteries are getting full. And it doesn't want to, it has nowhere for the energy to go, so basically it starts to taper off the amps that it's got going into it. So I'm probably going to receive in somewhere, being that I'm already at 48 amp hours and it's so early, I'm probably going to receive in somewhere around 200 amp hours to refill the bank and also get the batteries to float. Pulling in only about 300, I'm sorry, now let's go 400, now it's at 500, Huh, that's weird. I don't know if you guys can see that. This thing's, now I'm at 430, 440. This thing's jumping so often. At 400, I guess when I turned the TV off, it started to adjust to compensate for charging the batteries. Anyway, we're jumping around somewhere between 300 and 500 watts, so it's sweeping the spectrum right now to find the best way of charging the batteries. If you sat here for about 5 minutes, you could look at the capacity of, look at the amount of energy that's been used. It should start to go backwards. We're at 93.8 amps with about, I don't know, 30 amps coming in. That should start to drop pretty quickly. We're already dropping at 1/10 of an amp, so probably every 30 seconds or so we're going to lose a 10. So within about 3 hours of charge, maybe, I figure we should be somewhere near 100% of getting all of our energy back with hardly a load. With a load, it'd probably take a little longer in most applications. Wow, we're all the way down to 200 watts now. I'm gonna have to look outside. It looks like it's shading a little bit. That's most likely what's causing the problem. Let's take a step outside. I haven't been out there today yet to see what the situation is. Actually, I also want to check one other thing. Let's look at this wind turbine and see if we got any surge on that. Hold on. That's weird. Okay. Basically, overnight this thing spun up and got above it, and it was drained below the 5 volts, or slowly the supercapacitor was losing its charge, or the capacitor, it was supercapacitor technically. Anyway, basically it lost its charge throughout the night when it had no wind. I didn't hear very much wind yesterday. So it's possible that it just spun out, or it didn't spin out. Beautiful day out here. It's kind of cloudy. Sun's out. A little bit of cloud cover. I can see where basically it jumped from 200 watts to 500 watts in clear daylight. It's just basically, now the sun's coming out a little bit more. Not sure if you can recognize it, but anyway, here's my little 12-volt wind turbine that I put up. It's made by Eagle. I have battery connectors on there right now, and a diode to basically charge this supercapacitor. It's a little 2 farad, little stereo capacitor. And I'm running sprinkler wire, which is the most energy efficient and most cost saving way of wiring this type of connection. What the hell was that? There was something in that thing. I don't know what it was. Looked like a big lizard or a squirrel, but it scared the mess out of me. Anyway, sprinkler wire tends to be the best way of wiring up solar panels and wind turbines for me, because you got to think about it. Sprinkler wire is already gauged for low voltage, so it's going to have the highest conductivity. Also, it has like 8 different wires in there that are going to transport the energy to each individual sprinkler. They're already UV coated. They're very inexpensive. You bury it, and you can basically, what I'm doing is I'm running 1 wire for positive and negative. When you have a situation where it's not very many amps, you can actually use 1 wire and just split it up in half and half, and use the center as a ground wire if you need to for whatever electrical device you have. So there's, like, for instance, on mine I have 7 wires in there. I have 3 for the red, 3 for the black, and I'll use the white as a ground to connect to the solar panels, and it'll go, of course the cable is usually buried, but this is an experiment, so mine's above ground right now. I'm afraid to walk that way. Something is in that scares me. Anyway, like I said, this is the the coverage that I get. The sun's right about here, and by about 3 o'clock noon I actually won't have direct sunlight. I'll be covered by these trees. So that's why I say, you know, I have to have more solar panels to refill my bank, because I need to fill it up faster. But if you chose a different location to put all these solar panels, like if you were in a situation where you're on the run, or if you're having to move quickly, you would choose a place with a little more sun, maybe even a higher ground, but you would always face south. Just want to show you, I have panels up there. One, two, three, four two man-made, and then I have 6 purchased panels up there. Yeah, it's getting pretty warm out here. It's time for me to figure a way of making breakfast, which is probably going to be green beans and corn. I also have a little pasture over here. This would have probably been the best location over here to put the solar panels if I were to build like a pole mounted type thing. This would be the best location to put it. But being that I live in the country, I have literally a lot of options. But I figured being that these trees are as tall as they are, the best thing to do is to have a little cloud coverage, or not cloud coverage, but at least some height, so that I wouldn't have as much tree coverage over it. And you can see the old power wire that went there through the transformer that blew up a long time ago. Anyway, going into the house. Back into the house. Was only out there for a few short minutes. Got a pretty good tan, I'm sure. The sun was beaming. And like expected, we're somewhere around 490 watts now. Now that we're back in, I'm charging at about 35 amps. Bringing in about 27 volts at 19.9 amps. To turn that into 14.4 volts at 34 amps. So, I'm getting a pretty good charge out of these batteries. A real good charge. Let's see. I'm going to put this 9-volt battery back on its charger and figure out what the voltage is on the other one. Have more than one battery ready to go at all times. So, how my charge controller does. Doesn't want to work for my 9 volts. That's weird. Anyway, bringing it back. As you can see, we've dropped about 4 more amps in that time that we were outside, which was only a brief minute or two. You know, walking around. It's crazy. This thing's gonna have it flowing back to 100% pretty quickly. You can see the desulfator's already turned on. On the smaller bank, we're at 12.8 amps. I'm sorry, 12.8 volts. Which actually causes me to think my theory last night was wrong. I said, or stated last night, that because they're both in a bus, that most likely, because the negative is hooked up to the battery end of the bank down here, I would think that the electricity would feed back and actually start to charge the batteries at the bottom. But apparently it is not. And I think I know why. 13.4 volts. The reason that I'm thinking that doesn't work is because basically it's like a switch. You need to have the positive and negative hooked up, even though it's got a break basically inside of the batteries that prevents it from allowing the electricity the current to flow through it. So basically I'm charging one bank at a time depending on which one's on. Now the main reason that one bank is probably staying fully charged is because it's hardly used except for DC loads. So, you know, I don't typically turn on both power supplies because, like I said, when you have both of them hooked up to each other in any application, you're going to always have an issue where the smaller batteries are not going to put out as much as the bigger batteries, and, you know, it's going to cause the voltage to shoot down a lot quicker. Not sure if that has a way of balancing itself out, but I know that for a fact that I don't want to end up having my batteries believe that the other batteries are a load because of the fact that they're not charging, or I'm sorry, they're not putting out as much, and their voltage goes out lower, or goes down lower. As you can tell, it's been too early for me. I'm real sleepy. I'm about to brush my teeth, get ready for today. We have $100 budget to play with, so make a little checklist of what I'm gonna need, and I'm gonna put on video what I will need over this next week to survive. We'll go ahead and break down how much food we have, see how long it's gonna last us, because, you know, obviously going to McDonald's isn't an option, and in a situation where this was like a apocalypse, this would not last very long at all. Makes me wish I had a garden, which I tried to start as you can see. Makes me wish I had a garden to kind of sustain myself in this type of situation. But again, in a situation where you're on the run and you're having to move quick, how long would this last you? And then from there, could you get started on a longer time span? It actually looks like I'm being ravioli this morning. But anyway, putting you on pause. Hey, as you guys can see, I'm watching TV again, and I was just back here making my little checklist, and I noticed something that a lot of people don't put up. With about 400 watts coming in, which is clouded in a way, with about 410 watts, 30 amps roughly, we're putting in to the battery bank about 14 amps with a load. Basically, as the sun comes out more, you'll see that the voltage goes up and also the amperage goes up. So we're going somewhere around 15.4. So obviously, when you're considering your battery bank or your solar panel design, you need to think about what you're going to have running at all times throughout the day and double it basically, so that you have the ability to run those devices and easily charge. So for instance, I'm running my TV right now, but I'm also using 17 amps to charge my batteries from where they were last night. If you remember, for every hour I was pulling about 14-15 amps. Well, I'm bringing in 17.5 during the day while running the same devices. When I turn this TV off, I should be pulling somewhere near 25 amps maybe, because the TV is only pulling so much. But let's see it climb. And again, this is only at 400 watts. The sun and the shading is going to determine how much energy I'm getting at one time. But, you know, assuming I'm outside hunting for some reason, or I'm outside of the house and I turn off my appliances and I'm away, I could pretty much make up for any electricity I used in the hour before that real quickly. So if I'm pulling 5 amps or 10 amps on something, you know, you want to gauge your solar bank to be, or your solar panels to be big enough to recharge your batteries quickly. And in my situation where shading is a big issue, you want to make sure it can take place within a 3-hour, 4-hour time span to completely charge your battery bank. If at 50% at that night, that it can completely fill it up in 3 to 4 hours, which means you're going to have to do a lot of math and calculating, but it's very important for the health of your batteries and also for the practicality of this actually being a replacement electrical grid for you in any off-grid situation. Again, I only have 10, 11, 12 panels on the roof right now in all, and I also have a 85 watt panel back here that's not even out. The main reason it's not up is because I'm probably gonna get another 85 watt, put it in series with it, and then throw it on the roof and get an additional 170 watts that can help with charging. Of that, I'm probably going to use about 70%, but either way, you know, 100 extra watts easy for charging throughout the morning. So far I'm happy, very happy. I'm pulling in, I just read the meter, I'm at about 60 amp hours, and it's only been, the sun probably comes up way earlier than I do, but you know, the sun doesn't go over the house until about 3 o'clock. So we have about 5 more hours of sunlight in between shade, and you know, if the occasional wind gust comes through and knocks, I don't know, not knock a tree down, but you know, provides a little bit of cloud coverage, I have enough power that I'm going to be at 100% by 3 o'clock, but probably by 2. And that's the most necessary component about having an electrical grid. I'm not very strong on, you know, make sure I can eat and food, you know, have food and replace that, but I'm pretty damn good about making sure I have electrical needs covered. Wow, excited about that.